The day before his wedding, his girlfriend cheated with his best bro. And she even planned a love game with her lover. Do you want to see me in a wedding dress? Of course, but I'd rather see you as someone else's bride in a wedding dress and then do it with me one last time. I feel like I'm so bad because I want to too. Haha. Remember to bring some pills. I'm worried you won't last long. I can last a long time, don't you know that? Just wait until you beg me to stop. Mike held his cell phone, the WhatsApp chat screenshots unfolding before his eyes. His heart felt like it was being crushed by a stone, heavy and sinking. His finger lightly swiped across the screen, his heart beating faster with each swipe. When he flipped to that page, his body began to tremble uncontrollably. The female lead inside was his beloved fiancée, but the male lead was someone else. This sudden news stabbed his heart, and his world instantly collapsed. He closed his eyes, trying to calm the storm inside him, but the glaring messages were like sharp arrows, constantly piercing his heart. His trembling hand continued to swipe to the next page, and the obscene content made his heart bleed. I have a daring idea for tomorrow. What idea? Let's not use protection tomorrow. Okay, I'm not afraid. Ha ha ha. Or let's get another one tomorrow, and we'll have some fun. Okay, it's the last time anyway. With a smash, the cell phone shattered like Mike's heart. He sat there, pale as a ghost, motionless. His heart ached so much so that he couldn't breathe. After a long while he recovered. He wanted to know the truth, but he was also afraid to know the truth. The cell phone with its screen smashed to pieces vibrated again. Mike quickly took out his spare cell phone from the drawer and logged back into WhatsApp. Jason sent several more chat screenshots, along with a concerned message. Bro, don't get worked up, I'm coming over right now. He and Mike were brothers since elementary school. Seeing his best bro going through something like this, he was extremely worried and afraid that Mike would do something reckless. After sending him the photos, he drove to Mike's bridal suite as quickly as possible. At this point, Mike didn't dare to click on them. He only asked, "Where did you get these?" But the message was sent without a reply. He figured Jason must be on his way. Mike was originally decorating the bridal suite, but this sudden news interrupted his actions. He looked at the balloons, red bedding, and all the festive decorations in the bridal suite. Now looking at them again, it all seemed like a mockery. He was immersed in memories of the past, each subtle moment like a sharp blade, fiercely piercing his heart. The pain was unforgettable, as if tearing him apart from the inside out. His impression of his girlfriend always remained in that afternoon when they first met, her pure and innocent smile and shy expression, like a budding lily, quiet and beautiful. However, reality revealed her true colors to him in the cruelest way. The woman he once loved so deeply was so lewd. Mike's heart began to twist, and anger and hatred filled his soul. Soon Jason arrived. He looked at Mike, whose emotions were almost at the breaking point, and knew that no amount of persuasion would help. No one would feel good if this happened to them. He approached Mike and gently patted him on the shoulder. Want to go out for a drink? Mike didn't say anything. He would rather believe that this was just a prank by his bro of several decades than believe that his girlfriend of 3 years would do something like this. Where did you get these? Mike's voice was trembling, as if every word was squeezed out of his teeth. I saw them in an article. Jason was also frightened by his emotions and could only answer truthfully. Hearing Jason's words, a glimmer of hope ignited in Mike's heart. Maybe this was just a drama written and directed by someone who was jealous that he was getting married tomorrow. After all, his girlfriend was beautiful and flawless. They weren't usually that promiscuous. He couldn't imagine her doing such obscene things with someone else. Mike snatched the cell phone from Jason's hand and quickly clicked on the article, frantically searching for the person who posted it. He quickly found the article, clicked on it to expand, and a long text caught his eye. The night before a couple gets married, the groom is happy, and the bride is excited, but what makes the two people emotional is not the same thing. The groom is happy because he is going to marry a beautiful wife tomorrow, and the bride is excited because she is secretly planning to meet her lover for a pre-wedding rendezvous. Then came the screenshots that Jason had sent him. The person who posted the article also commented below the pictures. Everyone keep following. Let's guess who the baby's daddy is. What does this guy do? Mike asked Jason after reading it. His family runs a small business. I added him as a friend in a karaoke bar once. Mike added the other person as a friend with his own cell phone. The other person quickly accepted the friend request. Before Mike could say anything, the other side sent a message first. Bro, are you a gossiping netizen here to find out what happens next? Obviously, more than one person had added him after he posted the article. Mike patiently replied, "Yeah." The other side continued to send messages. "Want to keep up with the follow-up? Transfer $300. I'll pull you into the group chat. If there's a follow-up, I'll post it in the group right away." Mike was even more certain of his idea. This was a scam. Someone was deliberately hyping it up to profit from it. Mike transferred the money to him with a suspicious attitude. His heart was jumping back and forth. The other side received the money and pulled him into a group of more than 200 people. 300 per person, more than 200 people is tens of thousands of dollars. The lucrative nature of this also made Jason suspicious. He also guessed that maybe this person was just trying to scam money. The group was full of gossiping people just guessing who the unlucky guy was. Just as the two were lost in thought, the other side sent Mike a private message. "Bro, you were slow to join the group. You didn't see the previous photos. These photos are like a bonus I'm giving you." Mike saw the photos, and the face that had just regained its composure turned pale again. His eyes were so fiery that they were almost unfamiliar, and there seemed to be flames of anger burning in his pupils, as if to devour everything. Jason noticed the abnormality on Mike's face and leaned over to see the photos, which were pictures of Mike's girlfriend kissing someone else. These photos shattered the last bit of luck in his heart. Before Jason could react, Mike had already rushed to a huge floor-to-ceiling window. He mechanically grabbed a handful of curtains covered with wedding stickers and pulled hard. With a whoosh, the curtains fell to the ground, and the curtain rod also slammed heavily on his head, but he only trembled slightly. This pain was nothing to him. Compared to the pain in his heart, this external injury was almost negligible. Jason looked at Mike, who was standing stiffly by the window, his fists clenched tightly, his knuckles turning white from excessive force. The atmosphere became even more tense. A suffocating atmosphere filled the room. Mike was holding a pair of scissors in his hand. He frantically tore apart the items in the room. He vented his anger, pouring all his dissatisfaction and grievances on these ironic items. Balloons exploded one by one, sending fragments flying in all directions. Mike's screams and the sound of cloth tearing formed a visually striking scene. More than an hour passed, and the once tidy bridal suite became a mess. Everywhere he looked, there was a mess, like an abandoned junkyard, and silence returned to the room, with only Mike's heavy breathing echoing in the air. Jason stood silently to the side, not trying to dissuade him. Since it had already happened, it was good to let him vent. He looked down and smoked a cigarette, as if silently bearing this sadness with him. He understood that Mike was angry, disappointed, and most in need of companionship. Seeing that Mike had stopped his actions, Jason walked over, gently patted him on the shoulder, and handed him a cigarette. Mike took the cigarette, took a drag on half of it, and slowly exhaled a cloud of smoke. His mood seemed to have calmed down slightly. A few minutes passed before he finally spoke. "Take me home. I want to see what explanation that bitch has." His voice was low and firm, carrying an indescribable sense of finality. Jason, worried he might do something rash, was about to dissuade him when Mike said, "Don't worry, I won't throw myself away for a bitch." A flash of resolve flickered in his eyes, but it was overshadowed by deep helplessness and pain. After more than a decade of brotherhood, they understood each other implicitly. Even without words, they knew what the other was thinking. It was their unspoken understanding, their trust. Due to local tradition, the bride had to stay at her mother's house before the wedding. If the two houses were too far apart, they would find a hotel near the groom's house. Mike's fiancée, Serena, didn't live too far away, so she would be leaving from her family home. Jason, a construction worker, usually had a car covered in mud. But since Mike had asked to use it as the wedding car, he had spent the morning cleaning it inside and out. Mike and Jason got into the car. Jason couldn't help but say, "Mike, is going like this really a good idea?" He frowned, his face etched with worry. "I'm afraid it'll cause a scene and everyone will know. It'll be embarrassing for both you and her." Jason usually called Serena his sister-in-law, but that felt inappropriate now. Mike smoked in the car until the cigarette burned down, almost scorching his fingers, before he finally spoke. "She could do something like that. What face is there to save? Have you seen her messages? Is that something a person would do?" Jason didn't say anything else. All he could do was try to comfort him and prevent him from doing something he'd regret. The car drove on and neither of them spoke. The atmosphere in the car was heavy, as if the air itself had solidified. An hour later, they finally arrived at Serena's place. Before Jason could fully park the car, Mike jumped out. Serena's apartment was on the 3rd floor. Mike didn't wait for Jason and headed towards the stairs alone. Just then, a woman in her 40s came down the stairs, carrying a bag of trash. She looked at Mike and playfully teased, "Mike, you know you're not supposed to see the bride the day before the wedding. What's the rush?" This woman was Serena's neighbor, and Mike knew her. Usually, he would have stopped and exchanged pleasantries. But right now he just wanted to confront Serena and demand an explanation. Seeing that Mike didn't respond, the woman glanced back and watched him rush upstairs. She muttered to herself, "That kid, it's not like someone's going to steal his bride. Why's he running so fast?" Just as she finished speaking, Jason rushed up the stairs. Luckily, the woman dodged in time and wasn't hit, but she did drop her trash. Jason simply apologized and hurried on, worried that Mike would lose his temper. "Geez, what's with these young people today? So rushed. Spreading trash everywhere," the woman complained as she picked up the garbage. Mike stormed to the door and banged on it loudly. He suspected that Serena was still with her lover, and that only Serena's parents were inside. Hearing the urgent knocking and a voice that sounded like their son-in-law Mike yelling, Serena's mom rushed to the door. She opened it and was surprised to see Mike standing there. She was about to ask what was wrong when Mike barged into the apartment, searching for Serena. Seeing Mike searching like a crazed animal hunting its prey, Serena's mom glanced worriedly at Serena's dad. They didn't know what to do. At that moment, Jason arrived at the door and knocked again. Serena's mom greeted him with a forced smile and ushered him inside. Unable to find Serena, Mike took out his phone and sent her a voice message. "Serena, you bitch, I've never seen such a shameless woman. Where the hell are you?" Serena's parents, seeing Mike acting like a madman, didn't dare say a word, let alone provoke him. Mike had never lost his temper in front of them, much less acted like a raging lion. They were about to ask Jason what had happened when Mike approached them and demanded, "Where's that bitch Serena? Where did she run off to?" Hearing Mike's outburst, Serena's mom was immediately furious. But seeing the murderous look in Mike's eyes, she lowered her voice and said, "Mike, how can you talk about Serena like that? She's your bride-to-be." Mike sneered, "Wife? Really?" Mike stared intently at Serena's mom, now suspecting that the old woman knew about her daughter's affair, and that they had been deliberately hiding it from him. Serena's mom was intimidated by his icy gaze and lowered her head. After a few seconds, Mike pulled out his phone, opened his photo album, and contemptuously tossed it to her. In the dim light of the room, the evidence silently spoke of her daughter's sins. Mike lit a cigarette and glanced sideways at the old woman, feeling a wave of disgust. The old woman with her wrinkles and sly smile had left a terrible impression. She was the one who had egged on her daughter, demanding a ridiculously high dowry of $200,000. Next to her, Serena's dad was a stark contrast. The retired teacher exuded a calm and depth that was impossible to ignore. He firmly believed that empathy was the key to solving all problems. She only wanted Mike to treat her daughter well. Under his insistence, Mike ultimately only paid $100,000 for the dowry. The old woman had also forced him to buy the apartment, claiming it was for their own good. But Mike knew what she was really thinking. His parents had had to beg relatives for the down payment. Thinking about this, he felt a pang of bitterness. What would his parents think if they knew? His father wasn't in good health. Would he be able to handle the shock? His heart clenched. He looked at the old woman staring at the phone, wanting to grab her and slap her across the face, but reason prevailed. Serena's dad looked at the messages on the phone, his face full of disbelief. He looked at Jason, hoping to hear a different answer. Jason nodded, solemnly confirming that it was all true. Serena's dad's face turned pale. The blow was too much for him to bear. Serena's mom looked at the messages on the phone. Her expression changed, but not as drastically as Serena's dad's. Mike snatched the phone from her. "This is your good daughter." He glared at Serena's mom. Serena's mom put on a different face. "Mike, there must be some misunderstanding." Her eyes darted around, cold sweat dripped down, and her voice trembled. Serena's mom knew she had to appease Mike. If Mike called off the wedding, they would have to return the $100,000 dowry. "Shut up." A raspy, yet powerful voice rang out as Mike was about to retort. "It's because you've always spoiled that animal that she's turned out this way." Although usually overbearing, Serena's mom didn't dare speak after hearing those words. Mike watched their performance, feeling lost. He didn't know if they were acting or if Serena's dad was genuinely angry. He carefully examined Serena's dad's face, seeing the anger reddening his eyes. He could feel the anger in his voice. It didn't seem fake. Mike lit another cigarette and took a deep drag. His eyes flickered with an indescribable light as he quietly watched them. Time seemed to stretch out. The living room was filled with a suffocating atmosphere. No one spoke, only the ticking of the clock broke the silence. Finally, Serena's dad's hoarse voice broke through the tension, laced with pain and resolve. "Mike, I'll give you a satisfactory answer." His aging eyes met Mike's, promising something profound. The night outside cast shadows on Serena's dad's wrinkles and weariness. He said somberly, "That little brat told me she was going to clear her head. I'll call her back and get to the bottom of this." Mike laughed coldly with a hint of mockery and disdain. "Clear her head? Right. More like she went to meet someone else." The words were like a sharp sting to the heart. Serena's dad didn't deny it. His face was pale as paper, and his eyes flashed with helplessness and sorrow. In that moment he seemed lost. No matter what Mike did or said, he had no reason to object. As Mike had suspected, Serena was enjoying a private moment with her lover. The phone kept ringing, but Serena ignored it until Serena's dad called for the third time. "Dad, why are you calling so much?" Serena's voice on the other end was impatient. Serena's dad, hearing her voice, exploded. "Serena, where the hell are you? Get back here now." He didn't directly tell Serena that Mike was there, knowing that Mike might suspect him of warning his daughter. Serena glanced at the man beside her. He was leaning against the headboard, enjoying a cigarette after their passionate encounter. "Dad, what's wrong?" "I'm out right now." Serena's voice carried a hint of unease. She knew her father's temper. He wouldn't lose it unless something serious had happened. "You get back here now. You're getting married tomorrow, stop fooling around." Serena's dad was worried that Serena was somewhere public. After all, you don't air your dirty laundry in public. Just as the call ended, Serena and her lover engaged in another passionate moment before finally leaving the hotel. While Serena's dad was on the phone, Serena's mom had already made tea and poured a cup for each of them. Mike had been dating Serena for 3 years, and this was the first time he had received such treatment. A moment later, there was another knock on the door. Serena's mom assumed it was her darling daughter. She had to open the door and tell her that Mike was inside so she could prepare herself. Mike ignored the old woman. Serena wasn't going anywhere today. He wanted to see what tricks the mother and daughter could come up with. Jason couldn't contain himself. "Auntie, let me get it." Serena's mom quickly waved her hand. "Jason, you're a guest. Don't trouble yourself. I'll go." As she spoke, she headed towards the door. She quietly cracked the door open, revealing a small gap. Through the gap, she saw that it wasn't her daughter, but the neighbor from next door. Disappointment filled Serena's mom. She was already uneasy, and she didn't want to invite anyone in, but she had a good relationship with her neighbor. Mike followed the sound and saw that it was the woman he had encountered on the stairs. He smiled bitterly, not knowing what to say. But the woman entered the apartment and loudly announced, "Can't you talk him out of it? The bride and groom aren't supposed to see each other before the wedding. That's the local custom. You can't break the rules." The woman was beaming, still unaware of the gravity of the situation. Serena's mom could only smile apologetically, hoping that Serena would be delayed. Serena's dad felt the same way. Although he was flustered, he tried to remain calm. He glanced at Mike, hoping he would show them some consideration and wait until the neighbor left before confronting Serena. The woman seemed to sense the odd atmosphere. She looked around, her gaze finally landing on the door leading to the back rooms. "Lynn? Why hasn't she come out?" The more the woman tried to ease the tension, the more awkward it became. Just then there was a faint sound of a key turning in the lock. It seemed Serena had finally arrived. Everyone except the woman stared intently at the door. The door opened and Serena saw Mike immediately. She had been dropped off by her lover. They had been affectionate the whole way and hadn't noticed the voice message Mike had sent. A flicker of surprise crossed Serena's eyes, but she quickly recovered. "I wasn't going to run away. What are you doing here?" Her voice carried a tone of displeasure. Serena assumed that her father had called her back because of Mike's arrival. In other words, Mike had broken up her date with her lover. Mike just smiled disdainfully. Serena's mom kept winking at Serena, but Serena didn't notice. Instead, she continued, "Now that you've seen I'm here, you can leave." It seemed her lover was still waiting for her downstairs, hoping to spend more time together. Mike had been willing to give them some face, because Serena's dad had been good to him. As the saying goes, you have to show respect. But Serena was pushing him too far. She had cheated on him and had the nerve to act as if she were the victim. No man could tolerate that. Mike took a step forward and slapped Serena hard across the face. The sound echoed as Serena's cheek turned red and burned. She trembled, stunned for a moment before she finally came to her senses. "Ah!" Serena screamed, covering her cheek. She looked up and saw Mike standing there, his face cold and impassive. You hit me." Serena looked at Mike in disbelief, her eyes filled with fear and anger. "What if I did?" Mike slapped her again. The force of the blow knocked Serena to the ground. Her head hit the floor and she screamed in pain. Mike was consumed by rage. Each slap was delivered with full force, as if he was trying to release all of his anger onto Serena's face. The woman sensed danger. It was time to leave. Mr. Zhang, Mrs. Zhang, I have some urgent business at home. I'll be going now." The woman didn't dare look back, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. Seeing her daughter being beaten like this, Serena's mom couldn't sit still anymore. "Mike, you heartless bastard, how dare you hit my daughter? I'm going to fight you." She stood up and raised her hand, wanting to hit Mike. She had seen how ruthless Mike could be. She was just talking tough, but she didn't dare approach him. "Mike, let's talk. Our family is in the wrong. What do you want?" "We can do anything," Serena's dad said, much more reasonable than the others. Hearing this, Mike released her hair. He had come to his senses. Being impulsive wouldn't solve anything. You can't force love. He wanted to light a cigarette, but his hands were shaking. It took him several tries to light it. He took a deep drag before slowly exhaling. Call off the wedding. No one was surprised by the result. If you still get married after this, then you are a fool. Mike's heart was cold and clear. And give me compensation for emotional distress. Since Serena could do something like that, he didn't need to hold back. People can leave, but money can be collected. With money, any kind of woman can be found. Mike took another drag of his cigarette. Serena has to publicly apologize to me in the media. His story would be all over the news tomorrow morning. Only with Serena's public apology could he regain some of his dignity. Otherwise, he would become a laughingstock, the subject of gossip. "Mike, don't go too far." Serena, who had been silent all along, finally spoke. Even though her head was hurting, she was still clear-headed. "I can return the dowry, but don't even think about the compensation. We're not married. You have no right to hit people in my house. If this goes to the police, you won't have it easy either." Serena's mind was a mess, but she was still rational. She knew that Mike wouldn't let her off easily, so she had to let him know that she wouldn't back down. At the same time, she knew that she and Mike had no future together. If they were going to break up, so be it. She didn't have any feelings for him anyway. "Bitch, you don't have a say in this. Shut up if you don't want to get hit." Serena's dad came out to be a peacemaker again. "Mike, we can agree to the first two conditions, but the last one." He paused for a moment, hesitant. "Lynn is a girl. If she apologizes to you in the media after something like this, she won't have anywhere to go in this city." His words were filled with complex emotions. Although he was reasonable, he couldn't bear to see his daughter suffer. Mike listened quietly, the cigarette in his fingers glowing dimly in the room, reflecting his complex emotions. He spoke again, his voice hoarse. "Uncle, I respect you, that's why I'm calling you uncle. If you continue to side with your daughter, then I don't need to be polite to you." Serena's mom started acting up again. "You little bastard, who wants you to call him uncle? If it wasn't for Lynn, you wouldn't even have the right to enter our house." Serena's dad frowned and glared at her, his voice low. "Shut up." He was worried that he would provoke Mike and he would do something impulsive. Serena's mom was startled by his outburst. She pouted, glared at Mike, and reluctantly turned around to comfort Serena. Mike smiled and changed his tone. "Uncle, I suggest you get a paternity test. I'm worried that the daughter you've raised for over 20 years is someone else's. After all, a child's first teacher is her mother. I think that bitch doing something like this has something to do with her mother. Maybe it was her mother who taught her." Serena's dad just smiled apologetically, but Serena couldn't sit still anymore. "Mike, leave my parents out of this. Do you know why I got with someone else? Because others are better than you, richer than you. If it weren't for my dad, you wouldn't even be able to scrape together the dowry. But others are different. Others' meal costs more than you can even imagine in your life. Isn't marrying me just to sleep with me? Then others can give me money and I can sleep with them too." Serena's words were like needles piercing Mike's heart. Mike raised his hand to strike her, but this time Serena didn't dodge. She stood her ground. "Come on, hit me. Better to kill me. Otherwise, I'll see you at the police station tomorrow. Mike's hand stopped in midair. Even though Serena's words were harsh, they were true. He couldn't blame others. He could only blame himself for not being good enough. Seeing that Serena's words had Mike pinned like a sword, Serena's dad fell silent, seemingly waiting for Mike to concede. Serena's mom, standing nearby, wore a smug expression. The atmosphere in the room instantly plummeted, the uncomfortable and awkward air almost palpable. Jason glanced at Mike's frosty face and sighed inwardly. He knew this situation was beyond his control. He then looked at Serena's mom, who still held that triumphant look, seemingly convinced Mike would eventually cave. Jason turned back to Mike, knowing that he needed to steer the situation. He took a deep breath and said, "Mike, I don't think a public apology is necessary." His voice was soft, but like a stone dropped into a still lake, it broke the awkward silence. Serena's dad and Serena's mom both turned their gaze towards him, as if searching his face for a weakness. Mike also narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at him with a knowing look. Jason changed his tone. "Let Serena's house compensate us more money. After all, we're the victims here. If Serena makes a public apology, more people will know about it, which isn't good for us either. Your uncle is a retired teacher with a wide network. Let him use his connections to make this go away." It seemed like he was helping Serena's house, but he was securing all the benefits for Mike. That's the art of speaking. Thinking about it, it made sense. The most advantageous thing right now was to get more money. A public apology would be detrimental to everyone involved. Seeing that Mike didn't respond, Serena's dad knew his chance had come. "Mike, in addition to returning the dowry, we'll give you $50,000 as compensation for emotional distress. What do you think?" Mike remained as silent as ever, neither refusing nor agreeing. Seeing this, Jason continued, "Uncle, this affects more than just one person. Mike's parents aren't in good health. I'm afraid a shock like this might be too much for them." Although he didn't say it explicitly, anyone with sense could tell he thought the amount was too small. Serena's mom and Lynn were known to be greedy, and they couldn't accept $50,000, let alone more. "Jason, Mike is the only one who has the right to tell us what to do in our house, not you." Serena's mom's words were still sharp and mean, and the contempt and insults sparked anger in Mike's heart. He stood up and looked at Jason. "Jason, let's go. Tonight we'll find a TV station and let the whole city get to know this bitch." As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding atmosphere tightened, as if on the verge of explosion. Seeing that the time wasn't right yet, Jason fueled the fire, turning to Serena's dad and saying, "You know that we're in the age of the internet now, and news spreads faster than we can imagine. Once things blow up and become widely known, Serena will be a pariah." His voice gradually lowered, but the intent in his eyes remained clear. Serena's mom's anger erupted at that moment, her voice sounding particularly shrill. "You're threatening us?" She pointed at Jason, her finger trembling. However, Mike was relaxed, even taking a step closer to Serena's mom. "We wouldn't dare threaten you. Jason just wants you to understand the current situation." He wasn't pretending anymore. He was telling them he wanted money. Seeing that the family was unmoved, "Jason, let's go," Mike said to Jason. They had only taken a few steps when Serena's dad called out, "Mike, wait a moment." They guessed why Serena's dad was asking them to stay, and their steps slowed. "How about this? We'll return the dowry and compensate you another $100,000, which will be enough to answer to your parents," Serena's dad said in a deep voice, with a hint of helplessness in his tone. They both knew that this was Serena's dad's limit and his greatest sincerity. Things had reached a point that none of them had expected. Mike lowered his head, saying nothing. Jason naturally didn't speak either. After a moment of silence, Jason, knowing that Mike was waiting for an opportunity, suddenly said, "Mike, why don't we just do that?" Mike lowered his head, lit a cigarette, and said, "Then Uncle, please transfer the money to my bank card. That bitch Serena knows my bank account number." Mike wasn't in a hurry, taking his time. The longer this dragged on, the worse it would be for Serena, so Serena's dad would probably get it done as quickly as possible. The mother and daughter wanted to say something, but Serena's dad stopped them with a wave of his hand. Any man in this situation would absolutely not tolerate it. If Mike insisted on making a big deal out of this, Serena would lose face. Resolving the matter with money was the best outcome. As soon as Mike left Serena's house, Serena's dad stood up abruptly and slapped Serena hard across the face. Not only was Mike angry, but he had also been holding back his anger. "You inhuman thing. How can you live with your conscience after doing something like this? Our family is an aristocratic family. Where do you expect us to put our face?" Tell me, who was that man? Serena's dad pointed at Serena, his eyes filled with anger and heartbreak. He was trembling with anger, pointing at his daughter as if he wanted to devour her. Honey, there are no outsiders here, just put on a show. She's still your child after all, Serena's mom said quickly, trying to dissuade him. It's all you spoil her all the time. Look at what's happened now. Serena's dad was so angry that he was almost losing his mind. He even remembered what Mike had said, and for a moment he really wanted to get a paternity test. But soon the thought vanished from his mind. Hearing this, Serena's mom's temper flared up instantly, and she retorted with a sob. You deadbeat husband, is it all my fault that the child wasn't raised well? Did you ever teach her when she was little? Serena's dad didn't say anything, walked silently to the sofa and plopped down. The most important thing now was to appease Mike since he was the victim. The living room fell silent. Serena didn't say a word, and her face gradually darkened. Serena's dad observed her for a while, softened his tone. Serena, Dad knows you were confused for a moment. Now that it's happened, we have to find a way to fix it. Serena still didn't say anything. Serena's dad frowned and asked again. What's Mike's account number? Dad will help you sort this out. But this time Serena suddenly retorted. I can handle my own affairs. Then she walked straight out. Seeing Serena running away from home, Serena's mom quickly followed, but only saw her cold, retreating figure. Back in the living room, Serena's mom angrily scolded Serena's dad. She's already upset enough about what happened, and you treat her like this. Mom pointed at Dad and said, Now look what you've done, she's gone. If anything happens to my daughter, I'll never forgive you. With that, she went back to the bedroom, leaving Serena's dad alone. He got up and stood at the window, gazing at the night scene outside, a deep sense of regret and self-blame welling up inside him. Serena's mom's words still echoed in his ears, the phrase, it's not just her fault if the child wasn't raised well, causing him great pain. He knew that his daughter had caused such a scandal, and as her father, he bore an undeniable responsibility. Mike and Jason left Serena's house after 2 a.m. If this hadn't happened, Serena would already be on her way to get her makeup done, and he would finally be marrying the woman he had loved for 3 years. The night was deep and the car was driving on the highway. Mike saw a 24-hour convenience store still brightly lit, so he asked Jason to pull over. He got out and bought a pack of cigarettes. Back in the car, he smoked alone. Seeing him like this, Jason couldn't help but feel sorry for him and said, Mike, smoking too much is bad for you. You should cut back. When Mike didn't say anything, he added, Mike, how about we find a place to grab a drink? Even though he longed to drink until he couldn't tell up from down, he couldn't do that. He didn't know if his parents knew about this. Since tomorrow's wedding couldn't go on, he had to inform the invited guests in advance. Let's go back. There's still a lot to deal with, Mike said blankly. His mood was heavy, and the scenery around him seemed to fade. The car traveled through the city streets, and he ignored everything around him. After about 2 hours, he finally returned to the house where his parents lived. The night was silent, with only a slight breeze rustling, bringing a hint of coolness. He tiptoed, trying not to make any noise, and carefully opened the door, afraid of disturbing those sleeping inside. The light in the living room was dim, almost negligible, barely illuminating the space in front of him. Jason and Mike sat silently on the small 3-seater couch, the sound of the couch especially clear in the quiet night. They didn't speak, as if any sound would break the fragile silence. Mike looked at the small coffee table in front of him, the wooden surface worn smooth, as if telling the story of the house. The scene filled him with complex emotions, a mixture of nostalgia, guilt, and unease. He closed his eyes as if he could hear his parents laughing, his parents talking, reminding him to treat Serena well and always consider her feelings. The small living room had almost no decoration, just the small couch and coffee table, making the space feel particularly empty. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, time passing by. Mike felt a sense of loss and helplessness, a sorrow for the irretrievable past, and a fear of the uncertain future. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He knew that no matter how complicated his feelings were, he had to face reality and let his parents accept it as well. He quietly glanced at Jason, who had been silently by his side, his eyes full of determination and encouragement. It was a silent support that brought Mike a sense of comfort. The house wasn't big, with only 2 bedrooms, one for his parents and one for him. Jason, you must be tired too. Why don't you sleep in my room tonight? After a night of rushing around, it was a lie to say he wasn't tired. Mike had seen Jason yawning constantly on the drive. Jason was still worried about Mike's state and said, "I'm not tired, Mike. You go in and sleep. I'll just sleep here." Jason pointed to the couch. After Mike insisted, Jason reluctantly went to his room. Mike lay on the couch, images of him and Serena's sweet moments flashing through his mind. He remembered walking with Serena in the park, the breeze gently blowing, the sun warm, Serena's smile so sweet, so happy. Suddenly, he couldn't help but think of Serena's lewd chat messages with that other man. Happiness vanished instantly, those images turning into sharp knives, piercing his heart. Who exactly was that man? There were only a handful of people in this town who could afford a BMW. At that moment, Mike felt like a joke played by Serena. He chuckled bitterly, his eyes glancing at the simple furnishings in the room. If he wasn't getting married, his parents wouldn't have to suffer like this. A pang of sorrow surged in his heart. They had sacrificed so much for him, and he had let them down. Since things had already come to this, then so be it. The best way to forget someone is time and a new love. He thought he might as well use the money Serena's family was giving him to take his parents on a nice trip, both to show filial piety and to relax and change his mood. As for Serena, who she slept with was her business. Mike sighed deeply, then closed his eyes, lying quietly on the couch and falling asleep. Mike was awakened the next morning by a nightmare. He dreamed that he and Serena were married and had children, but for some reason he secretly had a paternity test done, and the child was not his. The next morning, Mike was awakened by a terrifying nightmare. It was still dark outside, the sky just beginning to lighten. He glanced at the clock on the bedside table. It was just after 6 a.m. He had only slept for an hour. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and got up to wash his face and clear his head. Just then, the door to his parents' room opened. Mike's dad, draped in a jacket, opened the door and saw his son standing there looking shocked. "Mike, why are you standing here? Did you forget something?" According to plan, his son shouldn't be at home right now, but at the flower shop arranging the flower car, then picking up his bride. Mike was taken aback by his father's question and didn't know how to answer. He could only stammer, "No, nothing." His mom also came out of the room, looking at Mike with surprise. "Mike, what's going on?" Mike still replied vaguely, "I'm fine." Just then his phone rang. Mike grabbed it quickly, as if he had found a lifeline, and answered. "Hello, Mike? We're downstairs at your new house. I don't see any lights on upstairs. Don't tell me you're still in bed." The person on the phone was Mike's colleague, also part of the welcoming party he had hired. Mike listened to the phone, looking apologetic. "Mr. Zhang, I'm sorry, the wedding is off." "What? Why?" Mr. Zhang on the other end of the phone was clearly stunned. Mike smiled. "It's okay. There's been a bit of a sudden situation. I'll treat everyone to dinner next time." Mr. Zhang was skeptical. "Well, all right then. I was looking forward to the wedding banquet and soaking up the happy atmosphere." The groom had already said that, so he didn't say much more. After all, who would joke about something like this? After hanging up, Mike sighed in relief. He edited a message in the wedding party group saying that the wedding was cancelled and sent out 2 red envelopes. He turned around to go back to the room, but suddenly realized his parents were watching him. His parents had sensed something was wrong when he was on the phone and came out to ask him what was going on, just in time to hear him say the wedding was cancelled. Mike froze, instinctively calling out, "Mom, Dad." His mom asked with concern, "Mike, are you hiding something from us?" Mike shook his head. "Nothing's wrong. What could I be hiding from you?" His dad frowned and asked sternly, "Then why would you cancel the wedding on your wedding day?" Mike took a deep breath and replied in a serious tone, "I'll explain everything to you later. Right now, I need to notify everyone on the list that the wedding has been cancelled. If they insisted on holding the wedding, and the bride didn't show up, he and his parents would be the ones humiliated. Instead of waiting for that awkward moment, it was better to take the initiative now and minimize the losses." His dad stopped him. "Mike, this isn't the time for jokes. Tell us what happened first." Mike was about to speak when his dad's phone rang. He took the phone out of his pocket and said to Mike's mom, "You watch him. I'll take this call." It was Mike's Uncle Lucas on the other end of the phone, sounding urgent. "Big brother, did Mike go pick up the bride yet?" "No, not yet." Mike's dad heard the strange tone and felt a sense of unease. He quickly asked, "What's wrong? What happened? Tell Mike not to pick up the bride. It's hard to explain over the phone." "I'll come over right now." Mike's dad wanted to ask more, but the phone had already been hung up. He and Mike's mom both looked at Mike, hoping to find answers. Seeing that things couldn't be hidden any longer, Mike had no choice but to tell them the truth. His face was pale, but his eyes were firm as he looked at his parents. After hearing his story, his parents were also shocked. They had heard about Serena's greed, but they never imagined her personal life was so chaotic. His dad got up and was silent for a moment, then patted his shoulder. "Mike, now that things have come to this, don't be too sad." Just then there was a hurried knock at the door. Mike quickly went to open it and saw his uncle looking at him with surprise and saying, "Thank goodness I made it." He was about to speak, but Mike interrupted him. "Uncle, you don't have to say anything." His uncle looked at the people inside the room. He guessed that Mike's dad and mom also knew about Serena's affair. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Mike, I know this is hard to accept, but..." "Uncle, I know what you're going to say." Mike interrupted him again. "There are plenty of good women in the world. I won't be heartbroken over one woman." Hearing this, his uncle nodded. Mike forced a smile and said, "Uncle, come in and sit down." His uncle sat down and the room fell silent. After a while, his uncle broke the silence. "Mike, I know you're in a lot of pain right now, but you have to believe that you still have us, your family." Mike nodded, his eyes welling up with tears. He wasn't crying for Serena. He was moved by his family. 3 days passed quickly. During this time, Mike went through a period of mental torment and hardship, and his heart became stronger and more determined. In these 3 days, he constantly pondered his situation and the road ahead. He thought of his family, his dignity and honor, and his responsibilities. Although he thought a lot, Serena's family's compensation had not yet arrived. The news of Serena's family had spread like wildfire at first, but as time passed, things gradually calmed down. Mike also became the subject of ridicule. Even if he didn't go out, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Many people were coming to laugh at him under the guise of caring. He didn't care about any of this. All he cared about was when Serena's family's compensation would arrive. This morning, as usual, he was deeply planning his future. He dreamed of possible changes, planned possible actions, and longed for possible successes. Then his phone vibrated, interrupting his thoughts. He picked up his phone, guessing that it was a message from the bank saying that the compensation from Serena's family had arrived. With a hint of anticipation, he opened his phone and clicked on the message. However, the title of the message shocked him. It wasn't a notification that the money had arrived, but a court acceptance document. His heart was instantly filled with confusion and unease, like a storm brewing. He opened the document and began to read, the confusion and unease in his heart gradually deepening. Serena was suing Mike for rape. Good heavens! Did this woman have no shame? Unless the judge was her father, her chances of winning were almost zero. Slowly, he began to feel indifferent. This must be that woman's conspiracy. Mike called Serena's dad, and the other end of the line picked up. He heard a familiar and somewhat awkward voice. "Mike, I was just about to call you." Mike frowned slightly, secretly sneering in his heart, but still patiently asked, "Uncle, why hasn't the compensation you promised arrived yet?" He knew that the longer things dragged on, the worse it would be for him. Serena's dad was silent on the other end of the phone for a moment, seeming hesitant to speak. "Mike, actually, the money is all with my wife. His voice grew quieter and quieter, until it was almost inaudible. Mike couldn't help but frown, secretly wondering what this meant. Were they playing him? He felt a sense of annoyance and unease. The compensation was his due, and he didn't want to beat around the bush with them. So he said directly, "Uncle, this is what we agreed on. I hope you can fulfill your promise as soon as possible." His tone was calm, but his attitude was firm. He knew that what he needed was to get the compensation as soon as possible, not to waste time with them. "Mike, I'll give you a satisfactory answer. Now please give me some time." Serena's dad was silent for a long time before finally speaking again. His voice was hoarse, as if filled with endless helplessness. Mike didn't speak, just listening quietly to Serena's dad's words. He trusted Serena's dad, even though Serena's dad and Serena were family. But he still believed that Serena's dad was on his side, because he was a living, breathing person, while Serena's mom and Serena were just a pair of cold-blooded animals. "I hope you can live up to my trust and not be an animal like Serena," Mike said quietly. Then he hung up the phone. However, the situation was developing much more seriously than Mike had imagined. The day after he returned home, Serena returned to her family home in high spirits and asked her mother to hide all of the bank cards. Not only did they hide all of the bank cards in the house, they also transferred the savings in Serena's dad's salary card. Serena's dad had a big fight with Serena's mom over this, and they almost came to blows. So when he was talking to Mike on the phone just now, he felt so guilty and hesitant to speak. He knew that Mike trusted him, but he couldn't give him a satisfactory answer. He couldn't tell him that his wife and daughter had hidden all of the cards and even transferred the savings in his salary card. He felt like a puppet in his own home. He had promised Mike just now, so he planned to have a big fight with Serena's mom. Mike was right. If he couldn't give him a satisfactory answer, then he would really be no different from an animal. Even if he couldn't get the compensation for Mike, he had to get the dowry back for him no matter what. Mike hung up the phone, but his mood didn't seem to improve after the call. He held his phone, hesitated for a moment, and finally dialed Serena's number. He wanted to vent his frustration at Serena. He knew that Serena had probably already blocked him, and he was even prepared for the call to be hung up. The phone rang in the air, and unexpectedly, the call was answered. However, the voice on the other end of the phone was not Serena's familiar voice, but a man's cold and arrogant question. "Hello. Is this Mike?" The voice on the other end of the phone had a hint of contempt and arrogance, as if questioning his existence. The man seemed to know that Mike would call Serena. Mike was about to speak, but the other end of the phone continued. "Did you receive the court summons? If you don't want to go to jail, transfer the new house under your name to Serena's name, and you can't ask for the dowry back. Otherwise." Before the sentence was finished, the call was hung up. It was like a condemned prisoner bringing the instruments of torture on himself, but Mike had also received a useful piece of information. Serena and her lover had joined forces. No wonder Serena's family hadn't given him the money. It turned out they had already thought of a plan. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. He should have taken the money before coming back. It was all his fault for being too confident. He used to think that as long as Serena's dad agreed, Serena's family would have no choice but to give the money. But he never expected that Serena and her mother would collude with her lover to frame him. Although Serena's dad was a person, people would slowly be corrupted by evil if they stayed with animals for too long. And he knew that Serena and her mother were not good people, but because of his impulsive actions, he had put himself in such a difficult situation. Mike dialed Serena's phone again, but by this time Serena had already blocked him. The phone only played the cold customer service voice. "The user you are trying to call is currently on the phone. Please try again later." Mike was now fighting alone. Telling his parents would not only not help in any way, but would also make them anxious. He could only call Jason and discuss it with him to think of a solution.